rejecting shareholder proposals work better than boycotting the company, and here's why. First of all, a lot of investors, retail investors, didn't know that they could vote on their shares. So usually what happens is that shareholders issue some sort of proposal. We want accountability. We want to learn about your charitable giving. We want you to do something that's more ethical or environmentally friendly. And you might say, well, why would the CEO ever do this? So CEOs can usually outvote anyone. So in the case of Facebook or Meta, for example, shareholders like us, when we buy one share, we get one vote. But Mark Zuckerberg has structured the company in such a way where he has Class B shares. We have Class A, he has Class B. No one else can have Class B, only him. And what it means for him is one share equals 10 votes. So if he has hundreds of millions of shares, or I don't know how many shares he has, but you get the idea. He has way more voting power. He can easily just crush any bill. But that doesn't always happen. Just because they can crush a bill doesn't mean that they would, or a shareholder proposal. Here are some examples. In 2021, Amazon shareholders pushed for a racial equity audit. They wanted to see how Amazon's practices were working. And Amazon was probably like, no, vote against this. But even though they were outnumbered, the retail investors, they were able to go and pressure institutions like the Vanguards and the BlackRocks of the world to say, hey, the world is changing and people want to see more equity in the workplace. And they pressured Vanguard and BlackRock to vote in favor of this audit. And when the company sees that there's so much demand for something, they have to do what's best for business and for their public perception. So they usually vote for the thing, or they go ahead with the thing even though they didn't want to do it, because their reputation is on the line and their company is on the line and public pushback is on the line. In 2022, McDonald's shareholders said that they issued a shareholder proposal saying, hey, lower the amount of antibiotics in your beef. McDonald's, of course, didn't want to do this. They said vote against this, but the world is shifting towards more health conscious citizens. And so the shareholders were able to, again, pressure the big institutions who own a majority stake of these shares to vote in favor of this resolution. And it passed. In 2021, people, the country, the world was shifting more towards sustainability and a sustainable future. It was a demand of a lot of investors. Big investors wanted a shift towards sustainability. And at that time, investors, shareholders, proposed to ExxonMobil, they said, we want 3 climate-friendly people to be on your board of directors. 3 people who are climate change aware, they believe in climate change, and we want them to be on your board of directors. And of course, Exxon said no. But again, the shareholders were able to go to these institutions like BlackRock and Vanguard and pressure them and say, hey, vote in favor of what we want. The world is changing. This is what people want. And they did it. So in the case of Meta or Facebook, their shares are 76% owned by institutions, which means we're outnumbered. The retail investors are outnumbered. But if there is a public shift or pressure used by social media or regular media to say, hey, the people are dissatisfied with this, we don't like the way the company is going, or we want to affect more change, you can affect more change from the inside than you can by just having a little boycott, because the boycotts really don't work. These companies are huge. So the way to affect change isn't, you can delete the app if you want. Who cares? Fine, delete the app. The real way to affect real change in these gigantic multinational conglomerate corporations is to invest in the company you hate. This is called activist investors. You might have heard of activist investors. They buy up a large stake in the company. They issue a shareholder proposal. They mobilize retail investors to be on their side. They go and they pressure the other institutions and they affect change. So yes, Zuckerberg could just say, nope, not doing it. I have majority shares, haha. But there are external consequences and broader repercussions of him not doing that. Here are some examples. And a lot of this is pressure related. So the CEO can do whatever he wants, but the board of directors, their main objective is to appease the shareholders. And if there is a groundswell of shareholders saying, we want this change, there could be legal repercussions or government-based regulations imposed on the company or long, lengthy legal battles that the CEO just wants to avoid, so they just go along with it even though they don't want to because they've been pressured. There's also institutional pressure, right? Where the institutions own, like I said with Meta, they own 76% of the shares. They could threaten the CEO by divesting their shares. They say, hey, if you don't vote the way we want, we're just going to sell our stock. And it is a little bit of a will they, won't they? But the CEO might not want to take that risk that Vanguard or BlackRock or some institution that owns 100 million or 200 million shares would just go, all right, we didn't get what we wanted, sell the shares. They tank the stock, and that really hurts the CEO. So again, he's pressured into making the change, even though they don't want to. There's also stuff like public backlash or loss of shareholder trust, right? When the investors don't trust the company, they might not want to invest in that company, and they might sell their shares. Again, pressuring people like Zuckerberg to do the right thing, even though he doesn't have to. So the real change comes from within. Even if we're outnumbered, we can still mobilize through platforms like social media to get our voice out there and pressure the larger institutions to pressure the CEOs to do the right thing.